Let's do this. The Cult of Hockey podcast. By the faithful and for the faithful. I'm David Staples of the Edmonton Journal, and I'm here today with Kevin McCurdy. Welcome, Kevin.
Thanks, David.
So we're a little late in coming to the podcast. We actually recorded one after last night's game, our usual two good things, two bad things, and Skype is going out of business. But Skype said they were going out of business on in early May, like May 4th or 5th, but they chose to do it a few days early, and our podcast didn't record. And we couldn't figure out last night at 1:30 a.m. how to record one. So this is plan B. Sorry for missing the game last night. We will be obviously talking about the game, but we're also going to be talking today about the reaction to the game. And there's been a lot of interesting commentary online about the game. So we're going to be digging into some of the most interesting comments. And we'll start this with the Oilers are down 3-1 heading into the third period. And we've already heard from Ron McLean. I think there's been 25 two-goal leads in the playoffs so far heading into the third period. There hasn't been one comeback. He said between the second and the third period. Jack Michaels said who the team that scores the first goal wins 19 out of 21 games. So there's a lot stacked against the Edmonton Oilers at that point. And Mark Spector of Sportsnet puts on X, quote, "There's no better team in the NHL at making a two-goal lead stand up for the final 30 minutes than the Kings. To say they have the Oilers right where they want them is an understatement." And Kevin, I have to say, honestly, I was not expecting.
No.
Where were you at that point?
That was one of the most roller coaster games that I can remember in recent memory. I have an appreciation for Connor McDavid's comments about never counting them out.
Mm-hmm.
I have learned respect for the fact that I've counted them out previously, and they've come back in unenviable circumstances to win, and they've done it again. So the doubters need to have a certain healthy respect for their resolve to come back, but they were not the favorites. They were not the favorites with 40 seconds left. They were not the favorites with 20 minutes left in the third period, and they played a hell of a game to get back into, the W column in the end and really saved their series.
The grade A shots were overall in the game were 23-15 for the Oilers, but much of that came in overtime. And the first part of the game was marked by the Oilers playing terrible hockey. Two big mistakes by defensemen stand out, and maybe an iffy goal on Pickard. But the two mistakes. Why don't you deal with the first one? First is that the first goal of the game?
Yeah, it was the first goal. It was the first goal against. And my major issue with it was that Darnell Nurse needs to use his head first and his feet second, and in very rapid succession, because he took the puck into the corner, almost in the corner. He's behind the net. He rang it around the boards into a mess of Draisaitl and a waiting LA King, instead of doubling back or using Janmark up the middle to walk out of the zone with it. He had two options that were, some would say, more dangerous, but in my view, safer plays to get out of that. And, they walked off the boards. He was at the bottom of the face-off dot, wired a shot 5-hole, which I really don't love as a former defenseman. Yeah, I don't love that. I don't love that. You need a save from your goalie. You need better play from your defenseman there. There's just none of that play was acceptable.
Nurse is a veteran defenseman.
Yeah.
He is he had a good season, and he's had 3 bad playoff seasons in a row. This year there's no excuse. He's not injured. He can't make that play. He can't make that play.
He was so good to the end of the season.
Yeah.
Till game 82, the man is playing the best hockey since his contract year in 2021. And the playoffs start, and it's just, I don't know.
He's not as bad as he was in last year's playoffs,
No,
which isn't
he had
saying much because he was so bad. But on that play, we saw an overhead view of it. When he got the puck, he had room to skate with it.
yeah,
He had room to go up the middle. NHL teams go up the middle all the time. This is a
yep,
normal play for the NHL, not a danger play like everyone was taught 20, 30 years ago.
yeah.
Never go up the middle of the ice. No, go up the middle of the ice because it's
Take
open.
space. The modern NHL is take whatever space you have and use it,
Yeah.
and
You got to
it's
you got
very
to
different.
you've got to
Yeah,
execute. So what does he do? There was a guy we saw from the overhead. There was a guy waiting on the boards, the LA King player who intercepted the pass. He was sitting there already when Nurse had the puck. He was sitting there before that. Nurse should be scoping that out. He should have his feet moving, and he should be able to make a play there easily. And he completely gaffed it, and not acceptable. The next one is Evan Bouchard. He had a really bad moment, like maybe
yep,
his worst moment of the season. And he's in the offensive zone. He gets the puck taken off him. Kevin Fiala shoots up the ice, and what does he do? Instead of skating like as fast as he can to try to cover Fiala, he pivots to face the play, and by then the the puck gets past him, and
yeah,
Fiala's in on the breakaway. Darnell Nurse has a chance and should also be thinking cover for my partner. There was no one else to cover. He could have probably got
yeah.
back and taken a penalty at least on Fiala, but he was a little slow to react. But that was really on Bouchard. He can't
Yep.
make that play. So there's just two goals. They're down 3-1 on two really mental errors by Oilers defensemen, and it's really. I was down in the dumps at the end of the second period. They had killed off their. They had done well on the PK, killing off 3 Kings power plays. I'm thinking, they've solved that, but now they're starting to get caved at even strength by the just plays that you can't have if you're going to win the Stanley Cup, and they're going to have to cut out if they're going to have a hope, because you can't count on like a miracle every single game. Your team can't go to the well that often. They've already done it twice, and they're not going to be able to do it again. So
You can't play Evan
repeatedly.
Bouchard 35 minutes a night and expect good outcomes after, doing that for 7 games for 4 series, right? Like
Yeah.
that's how they're playing, is every series is going to go to the very end, and it's going to be a lot of minutes on guys, and that stuff is going to take its toll, and arguably already has taken its toll. So they need to be much more. They need to be there from minute 1 of the game. This is not a new problem for the Oilers.
So what's your quote? What's the next thing we want to move on to?
I liked Dom Lucian's quote about this overtime has been complete insanity. The Oilers look absolutely relentless. It's true. There's a couple of things at play. Number one, I think high danger shots or grade A shots were 10-2 in the overtime.
Yeah, I
think
had
you
a
said?
10-2 for the Oilers. It was they were just,
That is one of the most
slaughtering them.
dominant overtime performances that I can remember in recent memory. I would use the word inevitable rather than even dominant, because they were picking the Kings apart. And part of that, I think, is the Kings' interesting decision now for several games to use essentially 4 defensemen. And I know the Oilers are basically doing 5 defensemen, and that there's some questions about Jake Wallman, and Emberson's playing limited minutes, and I get that. But the Oilers are taking it to a very limited defense core. What was it, Joel Edmondson that played the
36
sheet
minutes.
leading 36 minutes, and Drew Doughty with 32 minutes? Like, those guys have got to be absolutely gassed by 18 minutes into the first overtime, and it was just a matter of time, I think. And I think Dom's comment captures that pretty adequately.
Yeah, I was thinking like so good they ended it in the first, because I thought if the Kings had an intermission break, the coach might be able to snap his team out of it, whatever they were in. And because you often see teams come back at the start of a period and have a burst for 3 or 4 minutes, and they might have scored. But the Oilers certainly deserved to win that game based on the overtime. They were just coming at them.
A few moments later.
We had a little break there because of more technical difficulties. All right, we're the next online comment I want to highlight is from Hockey Blogger Tough Call podcast, and it's related to the penalty that was called late in the first overtime period. Gavrikov tripped up McDavid, went down. It was a penalty, but there's some Kings fans who are very unhappy about that penalty being called. But I'm going to suggest there was actually far more grievous errors in the third period. Connor Brown having his stick slashed out of his hands and broken in half, as well as McDavid getting tripped up by two guys right in front of the refs. I don't know how that was not called. It was unbelievable. That's when the Oilers were down, I think 3-1 still. And anyway, there was this call in the overtime. The Oilers dominated the overtime as 10-2 for grade A shots, and it was the right call. And I just think that I don't know what to say about the officiating. I think both sides have reasonable complaints. I haven't read the comment, have I yet? Quote. Did I read it on this one, Kevin?
No.
Quote. Here we go. I read it on the McDavid is
This
earning.
is version 3 of the podcast, by the way, folks. Just saying.
Quote, McDavid is earning calls and not getting them. That's exceptionally more frustrating to players than officials calling too much, especially when those calls are given to others. McDavid just keeps going. He just fights through it. And it paid off. He kept going. Gavrikov took him down, and the Oilers scored. Fantastic goal.
Yeah. No, I've somewhat complained a bit about the officiating on Twitter. Got to take a page out of the old man's book for that one, but it's really frustrating. Like, if I'm not mistaken, the penalties are 14-8 right now in the series, and that's not to say that the Oilers haven't committed more offenses, right? Like, there have been some really dumb penalties, especially in the first two games, that maybe ran that total up. But the standard has not felt the same both ways at any point in this series. McDavid continues to play through stuff that no other superstar player in the league really has to deal with, to the extent it seems like he has to. Like, he is the fastest guy in the league, and the only way really to slow him down is to bend the rules. And, the Kings have done a good job of limiting that. But when you start missing penalties like Connor Brown getting his stick cleaved in two, like that's egregious. It's something you have to call every single time, and it wasn't. And then there was the other one that I think was a trip in the corner, and you just got to wonder, and the team is some of the guys on the team were understandably upset with the officiating in that game. And yes, they got the beneficial call from Gavrikov's trip, I think. It was a trip, but in overtime, that's a steep penalty to pay. But something had to go the Oilers' way at some point, right?
I think when I was saying McDavid got tripped up, I think I was mistaken. I was remembering another missed call that was actually from the first period where two guys tripped up McDavid. The one that in the third period, he was streaking down the ice and a guy came from beside and hacked him and knocked him off his skates, and he fell down for a moment.
Yeah,
and that's the one that was also missed. So, it just seems like it's an ongoing issue. And the one on Connor Brown, though, is the one that was just a total mind-blowing thing to see not get called. Like, even if his stick hadn't been broken, if it had just been taken out of his hands, it was slashed down hard right out of his hands. That's a penalty. And then the stick snapped right in half. That took a lot of nerve not to call that one.
And they were looking at it too. I saw it, and he was rightfully incensed about it. And I just I want people to understand that I don't expect preferential treatment for the Oilers. I expect the league to enforce the rule book as it's written in black and white, game in and game out, to as consistent a standard as possible. You remove any sort of implications of bias or impropriety when you when you call things consistently. And I get that it's not an exact science. This is a problem that plagues all professional sports to an extent. And some sports have been more effective than others at, getting their heads around that. But the league made some comments earlier in the year about, the penalties, there's less infractions being committed. And I just don't buy it. Like, that's something that they need to understand and they need to get in front of, because it's really killing the vibes of some of these games.
What's your next online comment that you want to highlight?
There is an LA Kings fan, Triple Crown Kings. I don't know how you bounce back from that. That play from Byfield is running through my head nonstop. What a dumbass. What was he thinking? Might as well just turn around and skate it right into our own crease. And I agree with that to an extent. I think that really undersells how exceptional a defensive play that was by Bouchard to slash the puck at that exact moment. I think Byfield was thinking that possession at that point is more valuable than dumping, and I think they wanted the empty net goal to seal it. But
so this is the tying goal in the last minute of the game we're talking about.
Yeah,
the Oilers
exactly.
were 6-on-5, and Bouchard takes the pass from Draisaitl and slams it upstairs where Mama keeps the cookies.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
Byfield misplayed that for sure to an extent, but Bouchard's play on that was an exceptional play. And the reason I bring that up and why I emphasize defensive play is because it was a defensive play. If Bouchard loses that line, if they don't hold that line, game's over.
Yeah.
Kings win. So for people who say that Evan Bouchard is not good at defense, that play to me is exhibit A at why he actually is good at defense. And it's not in the prototypical, Kurt Russell or Russell kind of played Chris Russell play in the corner. Jeez, that's brutal.
You're thinking of the movie
not in
star.
the prototypical. Yeah, exactly. It's not in the prototypical Chris Russell kind of, blocking every shot and down and dirty in the creasing. It's a different kind of defense with Bouchard for sure. Like, that's no doubt about that. But he is a much better defenseman than he gets credit for, and offensively, he is truly gifted. And we saw that with 20 seconds left. The reason that game was not over and done with is because Evan Bouchard knows how to shoot, select his shots at the right time, not, completely tune out what the crowd is telling him to do, and be cool as a cucumber. Because if he'd shot the first time before he passed it back to Draisaitl, that's going off shin pads and out of the zone. So he sent it to Dry. He made the Kings move, took it back, found a seam, and just drilled it. Like, exceptional offensive talent.
My next quote is from Arizona hockey commentator Rob Gucci, and his comment was, quote, "Is Bouchard good or not? It's like he's two players at once. I can't figure out what it is," unquote. This is a fair sentiment. The people that don't like Bouchard are not stupid hockey fans or insane hockey fans or misguided hockey fans. Bouchard makes some big mistakes, and this year especially,
absolutely
a high number of turnovers, much higher than in the past. At the same time, Bouchard's a brilliant offensive player. No one debates that. But he also played really well in the playoffs last year defensively. Now, he's had some turnovers in early in the playoffs, and he had the previous play that we talked about leading to Fiala's goal. So he's had some really bad moments. But man, when he brings it, and he can bring it defensively. The coach used Evan Bouchard on the PK because I think he realized, Jake Wallman's, it looks like he's one of the skating wounded, and he's not getting around, and he was not getting the job done on the PK, and it was a big problem. And I noticed in the first Bouchard's out there, and what does he do? He hacked the puck down the ice, because when the puck gets on his stick, he is brilliant with it. He can also be sound enough positionally, like on the PK, you're essentially playing zone, and he's a good zone defender. He's a smart hockey player. He can read the play, and he holds his ground, to prevent the pass to the danger man coming in. Like people criticized him last game when he did that when Byfield broke in, but I thought it was the right play. He had to take away the pass and let the goalie take the shooter. That's how it's done. That was
Yeah,
actually
that's how
two games ago.
that's how I felt about that play too. And I know it was controversial at the time, but the defensemen are taught since minor hockey. You know, if you have a 2-on-1, you take the passer and you let the goalie deal with the shooter.
Yeah.
And yeah, he maybe gave him a tiny bit more space than he should have, but you know, you got to rely on your goaltender at a certain point, and he was doing what he was trained to do and what most defensemen are trained to do.
What I loved about his offensive game this game was not just the goals he scored and the shots he took, but the shots he didn't take. You know, he had the opportunity to take a lot more shots, and everyone's yelling shoot. He's smart enough. If there's no lane, he doesn't take that shot. He passes it back. He passes it off. And even on the 6-on-5, he did that once or twice. And everyone's like, so, but he's calm. He knows how much time there is, and he knows there's no use shitting it off someone's shin pads. He's not the shin pad assassin. He's the assassin with the puck. And
he was earlier in the season. He killed a lot of shin pads in the first 60 games of the season, and I think he learned his lesson.
That's a fair comment. He's getting it together, and he certainly had it together that game. I was impressed with how calm he was, constantly making the right play, the right decision at the point with the puck. All right, you got another quote?
Evan, I want to talk about actually Oilers Nation writer Zach Lang. Evan Bouchard is so damn good. I don't care what anybody else says about the defensive warts in his game. Never have, never will. His offense is so good and so clutch that it outweighs any defensive mistakes he makes. And I largely agree with that sentiment. I know we've sort of beaten the Evan Bouchard thing to death, but I also want to say again that defensively he is a better defenseman than people give him credit for. His corner work is exceptional, and his zone denial work is exceptional. Like, he does a ton of stuff where the puck does not cross the blue line, which is more than I can say for a lot of other defensemen on the Oilers. He's the thing where he chips the puck off a guy's skip just as he's entering the line. That is Bouchard in a nutshell. And I don't want to beat it too much more to death, but Evan is the reason that this series is not over right now. I just want to reemphasize that. Like, this game is these games are done. It's 4-0 Kings, series over right now if it's not for Evan Bouchard. All
right, we got two Bouchard lovers here. The Bouchard haters are going to be signing off now.
Yeah.
All right, here's my next quote this is from Kings blogger Rink Royalty at Rink Royalty. Quote, "The Kings have a problem, and Jim Hiller won't admit it." So this is multi-phased. The problem is that the LA Kings fans believe the Kings are sitting back when they are protecting a lead. They're not aggressive enough. I'm not even sure if I believe that. It's pretty hard once the Oilers get it in their heads to start attacking and just go for it and need to score, desperate to score.
Yeah.
There's no harder team in the world right now to stop than the Edmonton Oilers. And the Kings are doing a pretty good job, it seemed to me, of draining the life out of that game until Bouchard put one in off Drew Doughty's skate with 6 minutes left. So I had actually some sympathy so Hiller had a press conference, and a reporter asked him, what can you do, an LA reporter, what can you do to change what happened in the third period? And Hiller kind of lost it. He snapped at the reporter like, "Oh, you've asked me that questions many times this year," and then he issued, if Byfield had got it out or if something had happened, there's no goal, we're not talking about this. And I actually thought it's not a bad point. Hockey is a
cruel mistress, man. It's a cruel mistress.
It is such a tough game, and he's right. It often comes down to a bounce, small bounces. Like the Oilers, the difference between a goal and a grade A shot is minuscule. It's one movement of one leg. It's the puck moving 1 centimeter one way or the other. It's small differences, and to blame it all on a strategy that the Kings employed when the Oilers are desperate to score, desperate to stay in the series, and a must-win game for them. I'm not sure the Kings did anything wrong. If there's anything going wrong with the Kings, it's maybe they either lack depth or the coach doesn't trust his players enough to use all of their players. They're essentially going with 4 players and 3 lines, or 2 and maybe a few other players slotting in. Those players I did look gassed in overtime. They couldn't keep up with the Oilers. It was highly unusual to see such a lopsided overtime, and it might be related to the overuse of the team. The Oilers were using 5 defensemen and not 4, and it looked like the Oilers defensemen were really playing well by the end of the game. All of them were playing well, really moving the puck well, going back and getting it. Klingberg stepped up, Kulak, Nurse, Wallman, Bouchard, they were all playing exceptional hockey in overtime. It was a beautiful thing to see, honestly, from my perspective as a fan. And so I'm also a defenseman. I play in old timers hockey, and just, the way they were going back, getting the puck and moving it so well was really impressive. So I'm not sure that the problem is denial on the coach. I think he did a good job explaining in a way what went wrong. I just think you never win when you're the coach and you start snipping at the media. You look bad to your own fans, unless they really hate the media, which is the case.
But I think what it emphasizes that, to an element, he looks rattled. He looks rattled to the Kings fans by doing that. Yes. He looks rattled to Oilers fans and to his own team. They are, the Oilers are clearly in the Kings' head now. That, if it was 3-1 or right now instead of 2-2, the Kings would be riding high and they would be on their way to probably closing the series out next game. But the seeds of doubt have now been firmly planted. And, I'm sure there's an element of almost like PTSD avoidance type going on for the Kings right now. They've been eliminated 3 years in a row by the Oilers. And this relentless beast is still coming at them, even though it's not playing very well and still winning hockey games. And that must be so incredibly demoralizing and frustrating as a Kings player. I don't even know. Like, I understand why Hillier is frustrated, but he needs to be a bit cooler, and cooler heads are going to prevail if he wants to rally his team, because the Oilers, they're like cockroaches. You can't get rid of them.
Squirrels in your attic.
Yeah.
Okay, let's have one final quote each. What do you want?
Yeah, have you got one? No, go for one, and I'll see what else I can find.
Okay, I'll just go with Arizona hockey commentator Rob Gucci again. He says, quote, "The role Corey Perry is playing right now as a 49-year-old that got kicked off the Diddy Hawks is insane. Ooh. Guy is so incredibly valuable in his role." Corey Perry did get kicked off the Chicago Blackhawks. He is playing.
We don't know the whole story.
We don't. But he got kicked off. We do know he got kicked off. They voided his contract. Yeah. Of course, Rob Gucci knows that Corey Perry is not 49. He's actually 59, but still going strong as an NHLer. He is playing. It's just unreal to me. Did
you hear Leon's post-game comments about Perry?
No, what did he say?
He basically said, "I think he could play until he's 50. Let's see if the boots hold up," was his pretty much exact comment. And he's not wrong. And the reason he said that is because of Perry's brain. Perry is a brilliant hockey player from a hockey sense point of view. He completely understands at the most fundamental level playing the sport to an extremely high level. I think he's a valuable asset to the team. I think he'll see that he gets a 40th year contract from the Oilers, which many people might be scared about. But if you, for $1 million, can get 20 points or 20 goals a season out of a guy at 40, you're doing it right.
The goal he scored, which was crucial, like they needed that goal. They were down 2-0, and he scored to make it 2-1 in the second. Was just typified his calm. Hockey player, the average hockey player is not calm. Even guys in the NHL are not very calm when they get a chance to shoot. Everything happens so fast. Corey Perry, he's calm. He got that puck passed in on the power play, low block to him, and he just took his time with it. He stopped it, and he made sure he got it up. He raised that shot up at the goalie, making it hard for the save. Pops in the air, and he calmly waits till it goes below the crossbar, bats it over. And again, then it's just battle for the puck, and he wins that battle, puts it in the net. But the first two plays I just thought were marked by his exceptional reading of the game. He just, there's no nervousness in him, and this typifies the Oilers like McDavid and Draisaitl, and I do think it is why they're in Bouchard. It's why they're able to come back now. They have a tremendous amount of confidence. They're not nervous in those moments at the end of the game when they got to get a goal. Other teams are. They're nervous.
Yep.
They're playing scared and they're nervous. A lot of the players, not all of the players, but some of them are. It's a lot of pressure. But these guys, they're just calmly reading the game, trying and going a million miles an hour while being calm in the middle of your head. That is what Connor McDavid does right now. It is an amazing skill to have. Now, Corey Perry's not going. He's only going like 5 miles an hour. But it's everything else is going a million miles around him, an hour around him, and he's calm in the middle of that storm. And so it's there's some Rudyard Kipling poems I think that have been written about this kind of attitude that people can develop in life, and he's got it. He's a very impressive hockey player.
Yeah, absolutely. I like Corey Perry a lot. I really like this chill attitude thing that they're trying to it's like Bouchard is the epitome of that on the team, and McDavid and Leon. Like, those guys do not sweat under pressure in a panic kind of way, right?
Yeah.
The one time I ever seen them demoralized was in the final play of Game 7 last year.
Yeah.
McDavid shrugged at Draisaitl and said, well, let's give this a shot. And that's the first that I knew the game was over at that point. That was the first time I saw them rattled down a goal with 60 seconds or less left in the game ever. So that put it in context, they're not going to make that mistake twice, assuming they can get themselves back there. So the coolness and the just being smart even in the face of unrelenting pressure is a key skill that good teams have.
Sure.
Yeah,
they sure do. Do you have a final quote?
Yeah, I want to. Pete Blackburn has a couple of interesting quotes here. The first is being, got to start playing the rest of the Kings Oilers series games in East Coast time. I can't friggin' go to sleep with this stupid circus, and that's right, because I was vibrating after that game for quite a while. Like I can't imagine being a player in that. Like, can you imagine being Evan Bouchard or Leon Draisaitl? Like, Bouchard last game, game-winning goal off, 10 seconds after their previous goal, after fighting the whole game to get back into it. Or last night, how Bouchard felt tying the game, or Leon felt winning the game after being down the whole game. And, 19,000 fans just absolutely losing their mind. I can't imagine anywhere in the league that's like that. And that's saying something, because, there's rinks like the Bell Center. There's other rinks in the league that are friggin' loud, but the Oilers is a special kind of crazy. So that's point number one. The second one is, I'm not exaggerating when I say it's genuinely unbelievable that this Kings-Oilers series is tied. The longer it goes, the more I think the Kings are the arseholes. Edmonton has looked awful for 85% of the series. How do you let them back in? And I think that's a testament to their perseverance. I do think the Kings are their own worst enemy to an extent there, by how they try and close down games in the third period. But this is a resilient team that's playing through an absolute crap ton of injuries and still getting the job done. Like, can you imagine if they were healthy?
The Oilers.
Yeah.
Well, if they started out
fully healthy,
they are gelling. It's like they finally gelled.
Yeah.
They finally started to gel. Like, we saw evidence of jelliness. You said something interesting, Kevin. Like, can you imagine being Bouchard? And I think the truth is that we can't imagine it, because we don't have their nervous systems, like what, and their thought patterns. They're not experiencing it like we might imagine it. They're not. I don't think the old "don't get too high, don't get too low." That's not just something that's people say. That's what they're doing. That's what they're training themselves to do over time, and that's what they learn to do. So in that moment, there's joy. Obviously, you can see the joy, But I think it's
Yeah.
quickly, and everyone on the bench is. I just think that these are professionals. They're like hitmen going in for the kill. They're not shaky. They're not nervous.
Yeah.
They are cold-blooded. They got alligator blood, and that's what the Oilers have is alligator blood. And they're predators, and they're coolly looking to dissect, destroy the opposition. And they did it again that game. It was fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. No, they're an third period Oilers is something that's going to be studied for years because it's either very good or very bad, but a lot of very good. And the team is scary when they're playing together. But can you imagine how the series would go if they had Ekholm right now, or if Wallman was at 100%? Like, I don't know. There's other guys on the team that are hurt. Zach Hyman's hurt. He still threw 12 hits last night. Like, the team leading by like double. Next was Podkolzin at 7. Like, that's a lot of hits, and some of them were big. He smacked Mikey Anderson on the end boards. They're pretty good at the one point.
As Clint Eastwood would say, kid, everybody's hurt out there now.
Yep,
at this point,
absolutely.
They're all hurting pretty good.
You wish that we would have come into the playoffs a little bit healthier.
Really,
and I know that they tried. I know that they did everything. It just, they've had good injury luck for several seasons, and they finally had a season where they had some not so good injury luck, and that's just the lumps. That's hockey, right? But
yeah,
it would have been nice if we could have brought everybody in closer to healthy.
I'm glad. It was funny because when they finally kind of got Frederick and Kane back, it was almost like they were in fantasy hockey mode. It's like, let's make the lines now that we've always wanted to play all year long, right? Like we've been writing on the chalkboard these lines, and now we actually get it. But the lines, they put players who hadn't played together ever, or very rarely together, consistently through the lineup in game 2, and did it ever show? It was awful. They figured it out. Knobloch figured it out, and the last 2 games they
made some changes. They made some changes in the third period that were really important.
They've gone with known combos of lines. The McDavid line that we all know: Nuge, McDavid, and Hyman. The Draisaitl line: Podkolzin, Arvidsson,
and they stacked up in the third too, right? Like they went McDavid, Draisaitl, and Perry. And then there was some Kulak Bouchard, and I do want to point that pairing out because I would like to see more of it. And you end up with a lot of Ekholm's. You end up with a lot of Ekholm's defensive ability in Kulak, and Kulak is also an exceptional skater in the same way that Nurse is, but more defensively responsible. So I think there's some real potential there in terms of that. The give and take on the defensive versus offensive. Ekholm always sort of famously said, I'm experienced enough that I can say to somebody who's younger and inexperienced, go do the thing, make the mistakes. I've got your back, right? That's what Evan Bouchard needs. And I think it's up to the team to find the guy to put him with that, whether it's Ekholm or somebody else. And I think Kulak might be that guy right now.
It doesn't work that well with Nurse. I agree with that. That said, he started off with the set lines and then he adjusted, right? You got to put McDavid and Draisaitl together. And the adjustments worked, but I just think it's good to start from that base, although the Oilers were strangely uninspired at the start of the game anyway. Such is life. Well, let's leave it there. I think we've you have any final comment?
No, I think, besides Never in Doubt, which is the obvious one for that game, I hang on to that Never in Doubt with, quite a strong clutch because that game's very much in doubt for a lot of it. But I think Dad would be happy about that victory. But I think it took its toll on all of us from a mental and physical health perspective, but we got through it. So that's all we can ask.
The more that the game actually was in doubt, the more that Bruce relished saying never in doubt.
Oh yeah.
All right, Kevin, thanks for talking today, I guess. Yeah. And in the meantime, and in between time, and until we meet again, Bruce McCurdy, now in the Hall of Our Fathers, having a cool one with the Hockey Gourds. This has been another edition of the Cult of Hockey podcast.